in the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of these startups that have created these kinds of low-code products.
We all have seen tons of videos around how to build an app on a low-code platform. But have you ever wondered what goes into building a low-code platform? That is what we are going to explore today with Tejas Gadhia.
Someone who starts day one, makes a form, then 3 months down the line, maybe they're dabbling in some workflows, maybe then they're getting into some scripting, maybe eventually they're designing their own pages and creating front-end interfaces, then a mobile apps. Like, this is the evolution of a person, rather than not so much just building functionality for your current skill set, but trying to guide you upskill you.
So sit back and relax while we dive deep into the heart of low-code technology.
Welcome to Chennai, Tejas. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks.
Tell us something about yourself. Introduce yourself to our audience.
I'm in Chennai, so I'm pretty hot right now. But my name is Tejas Gadhia. Been at Zoho for about 10 years now, and on the creator team for about 7.
Okay. And what's your role like? What do you do with the creator?
So on the creator team right now, technically I'm a developer evangelist. A lot of people have no idea what that means. Sometimes I don't even know what it means, but I'd say it's the best job I could ask for. I get to talk to customers about their use cases, hear about how they're using our products, and then share the good word about how our solutions can basically make people's lives better.
10 years, right?
Yeah.
10 years, right. And what do you handle right now? Like, what is your current role? How do you interact with customers? What do you talk to them about?
Yeah, so currently talking to customers is a big chunk of it. So meeting them wherever they are, some of our conferences, trainings, meetups, one of our Zoholics events, people that come to our office or visiting them one-on-one, getting their feedback, seeing what their experience is like, passing it on to the team, feature requests, what features they like, what they're hoping for, how they kind of work, just seeing people use the product out in the open. That's a good chunk of, or I'd say that's the fun part of the job. Then there's the admin side of the job, which is not as fun, but we'll focus on the fun.
Okay, so let's take a step back. The developer ecosystem, right? What do you do within that for Zoho?
Yeah, I guess technically I'm considered a developer evangelist. A lot of people don't know what that really even means, but in general, it's just spreading the good word about what we do and sharing it with our customers and helping them get better at their operations, increase their productivity, and just make their lives easier.
Okay. So let's say you are talking to a customer, right? What are the typical IT priorities that you see from their side right now? What do they want to do at this point in time? Considering, let's say, the last 5 years, we have gone through a lot of changes and things like that, right? So what are the priorities that you see with organizations?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely depends on who I'm talking to at the company. Generally, management leadership, it's a lot more high-level strategy and a lot less practical things that make people's lives better. When I talk to people who are actually using and building the software, they want to be in spreadsheets list. They want to stop sending emails back and forth. They want to stop downloading things and making a change and sending it back and using a paper process. They just want to automate and organize kind of daily tasks. That's like the on the ground, immediate impact kind of things. When you talk to management, it's a lot more about, general digital transformation was a buzzword for a while, strategic things. Generally a lot more talk than they are action, but ultimately it's hard because for them, the concern is not so much, I would say, the user experience of their employees using the software. For them, it's a lot more around security and compliance and governance and making sure that whatever they deploy in their organization, no one's going to come back and get in trouble for it. So they're just a lot more cautious in general.
Got it. And we have seen a wave of low-code, no-code platforms coming into the developer ecosystem, right? What's the split like? Who drives development at this point in time? How much are really low-code and no-code platforms being used? What's your take on the whole thing? Is that becoming a larger part of IT strategy, or is it still really picking up on momentum?
A little bit of both. It just depends on kind of the IT maturity of the organization itself. I would say the term low code has kind of gotten a little bit messy over the years. Technically, low code was just meant to be, a platform where there's some feature level abstractions to help increase productivity of app development for people. But now low code can also mean anything that's point and click is technically considered low code because you're pointing and clicking in some interface, and that's an abstraction of whatever code or workflow that's actually being executed in the back end. So here you'll see every product. You can have an email product that's low code. You can have expense management that's low code. So in that regard, the term itself, I would say people should try not to get confused with. But when we talk about low-code app development specifically, lots and lots of vendors, especially in the past couple of years, we've seen a lot come up. Most of them have focused, especially newer ones, focused a little bit more on spreadsheet replacements. So I would say call it generally spreadsheets on steroids or Excel on steroids. They try to take a spreadsheet experience that people are familiar with, make it look a little bit better, add some basic level of sharing, workflow, collaboration, things like that, and run with it. It's very much difficult to go from that spreadsheet replacement to full-blown business process management, auditing, compliance, powerful workflow, some sort of a scripting engine, cloud functions, environments for staging and testing and production. Those are all like way more, not necessarily enterprise features, but way more sophisticated features for more sophisticated IT organizations, regardless of the company size.
Got it. Okay, so traditionally, the professional developers are the ones who develop or who are supposed to develop applications within an organization, right? So when we bring in the whole concept of a developer platform, what does that mean to organizations? I know there is democratization attached to it, which a lot of our audience might not be really familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But can you shed some light onto what a developer platform is for an organization and what it intends to do?
Yeah, I mean, the point of a good developer platform is really to just increase productivity for employees. How it's done is in a lot of different ways. Generally, most traditionally, web and mobile apps, integrations, things like that is meant to be a part of a developer platform. Organizations will already have professional developers, especially the larger they go. For them, they still generally don't tend to like low-code platforms, more so for a couple reasons. One, if you're like, imagine like you're a very skilled carpenter and then somebody gives you like a guide. It's like, all right, well, I don't need the guide because I've been doing this for like 20 years and I know what I'm doing, but I could see how it might help somebody else that doesn't know what they're doing. They follow like the cutting guides and stuff like that. Similarly, for an experienced developer, the speed for them to build and the control that they like to have, they're not generally looking for low-code solutions. So it takes a little bit more buy-in from them. And it's more so the buy-in is not that you're losing your job and things are getting easier for you. It's more like all the mundane stuff about spinning up a database and creating servers and doing scalability and storage and all these kinds of things. We're just taking that load off of you. You get to create the workload or workflows, the business logic, the UI, the UX, the design, all that can be on yours. You just don't have to worry about the backend stuff as much if you want to use a low-code thing as a professional developer. For the non-technical people, and that's a wide range, I would say most of these folks are generally pretty good at Excel, which is why there's so many startups in the Excel on steroid space. But those folks, they know how to use Excel. They're familiar with formulas, so they understand some level of logic. Some of them go pretty far with Excel in terms of lookups and VBAs and macros and stuff like that. And they just need something that's more, I would say, user-friendly, because there's a lot of ways to make Excel work, a lot of do whatever it is you need it to do, but it's not always the most user-friendly. It can be clunky, sharing, permissions, workflows, automation, integrations. These are all kind of bottlenecks of the Excel side of things. And so on both ends of the spectrum, there's a lot to gain, but it just depends on which side you're on, and you got to know what problem it is you're trying to solve. Oftentimes, you don't want to take a gun to a knife fight or a hammer, whatever the analogies are, you know what I mean? Basically, like overkill of product. So the product itself has to meet the needs. If I'm looking for something simple to track, I don't know, how many people come in and out of the office, do I need to really spin up a full custom application for it? Maybe not. Maybe I just need a simple form, some basic reporting, and a couple of workflows that send emails whenever someone comes and goes. That should be, a 30-minute, 1-hour job. There's no reason to spin up a full custom app for it.
But does it mean that it's only for smaller use cases? How do you scale with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the scale happens a little bit over time, I would say. Oftentimes, people who try to build a complex application right off the bat, they might face some challenges because there's a learning curve to a low-code app. Everyone is pretty proprietary. There's similar shared concepts, but naming structures and where things are located, there's a big just learning curve in general. So even if I take something like this check-in app, right? A check-in app can start very simple, maybe a form just to keep track of who comes into the office. Then you add some workflow that says, all right, well, whenever they come to the office, whoever they're visiting, let's send them an email. Then you add it more complex, and maybe you have a mobile app where you can scan a QR code, automatically print a badge, and have the badge for the customer or visitor whenever they come into the office. Great. And then whenever they use that badge, we might need to provision it with a third-party security system that lets them in and out of certain doors, maybe conference rooms only and not, floors that they don't have access to. And then maybe at the end of the month, we want to get some automated reports that have some analytics on who gets the most visitors, when they're coming, what time they were here, just for compliance reasons. So something as simple as maybe just checking people into the office can add layers of complexity, but you have to kind of build confidence with the platform that you're using. And once you kind of get that small use case right 1 or 2 times with new people, then it'll start snowballing into more and more sophisticated use cases.
Got it. And so that brings me to the question, right? Like, I don't have any background in application development. So if I'm going to start with developing something that I want for my team, it is bound to happen at some point in time. I will hit a ceiling, I'll hit a wall, because I don't know what to do.
You gotta have faith in yourself.
Sorry?
You gotta have faith in yourself.
But if I don't have the necessary traditional development skills, what happens then? Like, how do I break through that ceiling? How do I move forward with that? And how does a platform help me with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd say the best low-code platforms wouldn't even let you know that there's a ceiling that you're hitting. And so that's by the way complex functionality is abstracted and displayed to users that are using the product. That's where a good low-code platform comes from. So for example, if I take something like maybe you're not very good at data modeling. You don't understand structures and schemas and tables and relationships and foreign keys and primary keys and all sorts of data types. That's not really what it is. You just know I need to store a name and an email address, but I also need to keep track of every day that they come in and out. So let me create 2 things, have them kind of connected to each other, and that's it. So that initial thought of I don't understand how to create these relationships might have been your own personal glass ceiling, but the platform itself basically removes that glass ceiling so you don't ever see it and you kind of go through. So in that sense, it's just how functionality is kind of wrapped and presented makes it so you don't really experience those ceilings in terms of functionality or what it is you want to build. Got
it. It's fascinating. Faith plus the capabilities of the platform that you mentioned. And that brings me to the question, right? It might not be that easy to build a platform that caters to such varied requirements, is flexible, is scalable. And I know Creator has been doing this for 17 years. What is it like from the builder side of things, right? Like, what are the challenges that you face? What do you keep in mind when you're building a platform like this? And it's after, we have gone through multiple generations of it at this point in time. I'm assuming the complexity will keep on increasing. How do you deal with that? What goes through your mind when you're putting something together like this?
Yeah, that's a lot of good questions at once. I'd say in general, one is we have to know exactly who our kind of target users are, what types they are, and what buckets they fall in, and then increase the productivity or the functionality for each one of them. But ultimately, our goal is to take somebody like yourself who thinks you don't have app development potential and make you realize that you can build apps and you can actually build complex applications. You just don't know yet. So someone who starts day one, makes a form, then 3 months down the line, maybe they're dabbling in some workflows, maybe then they're getting to some scripting, maybe eventually they're designing their own pages and creating front-end interfaces, then a mobile apps. Like, this is the evolution of a person rather than not so much just building functionality for your current skill set, but trying to guide you upskill you so then you can build more complex things. That's like, I would say, the true mission. Then the second half of it is how do you balance kind of the wide array. So what happens is a lot of vendors actually focus on either the technical folks, which means there's a high barrier to entry for anybody else to actually get in and start using that product, maybe 6 months of training or hundreds of hours of courses or thousands of dollars to actually learn how to use the platform. Or at the low end, the spreadsheet alternatives, and that's, I can spin something up quick and get like pretty fast results. But then the second I need to add some complexity, like an integration or some automation that might not be possible, then it's like I wasted all this time building something that's just not going to grow with my needs. And so you have to have something that caters to everybody because, like I said in the check-in app, everything starts pretty simple and it expands in scope. So you have to plan for like the initial experience of simple and then know that it's going to snowball into just something bigger and hopefully encourage people to have the faith that they can add more functionality. What we don't want is, this check-in app, we can't add this, integration with the security system. It should be like, oh yeah, this thing has all this capability. They have APIs, they have connectors. We can easily connect it to this API, to the security system. It won't be a problem. You want to have that. We got to keep people knowing that there's more that they can do with it, even if they don't touch it yet. You always want to be on if you're using a software or whatever, it's like, it's best if you're buying into something. And even if you're using only 10% of it now, that there's a lot of growth there. Versus if you come in and you buy the top level product or top level edition of something and you use 90% of the features, then when you grow, that product may or may not grow with you. So coming in at the bottom level actually makes it more valuable to you long term.
Okay, and so, but from a scalability point of view, right? If I ask you, okay, scalability can be one part of it, but when you're trying to cater to organizations which are large by nature, there is a chance of a lot of people adopting to the platform. I'm guessing that is what we are all going after, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the situation is like that, what are the top 3 traits that you would want to give within the platform that kind of qualifies it as a developer platform?
Yeah, one is definitely, I would say, first for anyone adopting a developer platform, one is value. Like I said just now, like making sure that you're paying for something and you feel like you're getting more out of it than you're putting into it. That's, why we all buy software and technology is there to increase productivity and show value. The next one is kind of vision. So does this company or vendor that you're picking with actually show a track record of making the product better? Is it stagnant or is it actually evolving? Are they adding new functionalities? Are they expanding on existing functionalities, making them more user-friendly, more powerful? And then the third one is kind of longevity, because in the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of these startups that have created these kinds of low-code products, but not to go too far down like the economics rabbit hole, but ultimately there's a little bit of a tech bubble, and if those are not around, there's no real portability between one low-code product and another. So if you want to move something from one service to another, you have to recreate it from scratch. At best, you get the data out in maybe a spreadsheet that you can import, but you lose your workflows, you lose your interfaces, you lose your sharing, you lose any kind of security policies you have in place. All that stuff goes out the window. So really making sure that someone's going to be there for the long term makes it a lot better.
Okay. And in any tech conversation right now, you can't leave AI out of the picture, especially with what has happened since November with ChatGPT and things like that. What is the role of AI in a developer platform, in the Zoho Creator platform?
Yeah, good question. So, AI is going to be extremely important because ultimately it's just going to be another level of abstraction for more complex things. So rather than manually creating this check-in app, if I can just write something that says I need to make a check-in app that connects to this security system and sends an email whenever somebody comes, I can easily just write that, and then the app can get built for itself. There's no reason that wouldn't be the case. And so we're definitely going down that path where I feel like there was a hype cycle around like chatbots maybe like 7-10 years ago or so. Then it kind of fizzled out and they kind of just didn't really get the intelligence that needed for a good conversation. But with ChatGPT is clearly showing that there's better ways to communicate if you know what you're talking about. The other half of the problem, though, is things like ChatGPT only really work if you are you're telling it to do something and you're pretty confident about what you want to do. Sometimes you don't exactly know what it is because in your case, if you're not an app developer, you might not be thinking about the right relationships or the right workflows or the right triggers or the right security policies. So you kind of need a guided system that can ask you follow-up questions. So if you say, make a check-in app, all right, cool. What are you checking into? Maybe like an office space for visitors. Maybe it's for a dentist office or a doctor's office for an appointment. Maybe it's for different use cases. Based on that follow-up question, we'll suggest, maybe you need these fields, maybe you need these workflows. And then it's like, all right, I need to connect to this system. All right, well, there maybe isn't a pre-made connector for it, but I looked it up online and I saw that they offer this kind of an API, so we can easily integrate it. Let's work on this, next step. So it has to be more guided rather than just saying what you want, because honestly, one of the bigger problems with the low-code platforms like this is, no offense, people like you generally make pretty bad applications, especially when they get started. And so, and by bad applications, I just mean like, a lot about being a developer is about just being able to think logically, linearly, programmatically, and knowing step by step what's happening. And oftentimes people just jump into a low-code platform or any development opportunity and start, creating fields and making forms and making workflows, not really thinking about taking a step back and saying, what is my ultimate goal here? How does this data kind of look when it's connected to each other? What kind of reports do I want to really see? Do I want to see like maps and charts? And how does this, you got to take a pause and kind of plan. So generally it's more like the measure twice, cut once approach. And AI really comes in handy here because just because somebody makes a bad application, and by bad, I just mean like maybe bad data model, bad choices, it's our job to help them make those changes that'll make it into a good application. Because what really happens is at the foundation of any application is if the data model itself is incorrect or poorly designed, then maybe the reports you want to ultimately actually see aren't able to be generated because there's no real connections or the data is not formatted properly. And so as a user or customer, you become frustrated because it's like, how come I can't make this report that I want? Well, the reason you can't make the report is not because the product doesn't let you. The reason you can't make it is because the data is not structured properly. So it's our job to basically support poorly made applications, assuming people know what they want to do, but also helping them guide, say, hey, actually maybe move this around, or do you want us to make this field change for you because it will work better and your reports will look better, or you can do more functional things there. So it's a lot more about guiding and educating, not just telling you we'll make the change, but also why this change is there. The reason you kind of maybe split this up into two separate tables rather than just one is because of X, Y, and Z advantages. Your report will look better, whatever justification there is. So it's not just fixing people problems for them, but it's also educating, which I think maybe, sorry, the last bit on the ChatGPT thing, a lot of times it's, make me an application that does X, Y, and Z. Great. But if you don't understand why design choices were not made or were made underneath that, then you're not really learning anything. It's like something's being done for you, but then it's a black box again. So then when you want to change something, you're going to have difficulty because you don't really know the structure of it. So that's really important to say, that it'll make things easier for people, but the hard part for people is really understanding why it gave the answers it did, and understanding the underlying framework of that solution that was provided, so you can make changes to it and have control of it in the future.
Got it. In fact, that's just what I was about to summarize also, that you are not only helping me build better apps, you're also teaching me how to build better apps. So yeah, that's a skill that I'm picking up, which will keep on evolving as I use the platform more and more. Excellent. Okay, let's come to Zoho and Zoho Creator, right? What is the advantage that Zoho Creator has as a developer platform, being a part of Zoho as a large multi-product provider?
Yeah, I would say, we're kind of lucky because it makes it a little bit easier for us to offer this product in the first place. The way we kind of do things at Zoho is there's a lot of shared technologies across the board. So if CRM team comes up with a new feature, we can easily incorporate it inside a Creator. If our Zoho mail team comes up with a better way to send emails or a different kind of interface for that, we can plug that into Creator. So we inherit a lot of functionality that's shared and developed across all these different teams, from audio video capability to notification systems to mobile app creation to report generation and analytics, all these kinds of different components we build ourselves, but we also inherit from other teams, and then we share resources. So for us, that actually makes things a little bit easier, where we get to focus on a lot more of the actual user experience rather than building out the technology, because a lot of that is shared amongst Zoho.
Okay. And how are you using it? And how is Zoho using the Creator platform? The fact is that we have multiple developer products, all of which ideally is rolling into a single developer experience platform, right? So how is the usage within Zoho? How are we leveraging it?
I haven't seen the numbers lately, but last I remember, there's we have about 13,000 employees, give or take. And I want to say there's over 20,000 apps in Zoho. So everybody's making apps, some of them good, some of them bad, some of them probably made by you, hopefully good ones. But basically, from very simple use cases, I remember the first app I ever made actually was in the Austin office. We had a Thanksgiving potluck. And so people would bring sides or bread or, stuffing or whatever, mashed potatoes, whatever, right? And normally it's just in a spreadsheet, and you kind of add what it is, and you hope that somebody else, you don't want 3 people bringing mashed potatoes, because then there's not a diversity of food. And so then the problem with the spreadsheet was people were upset that they weren't getting to bring what they wanted to bring because somebody else was already bringing it, and wanted to make sure. So I made a little app that basically said, look, these are the items that are needed, because people didn't even know what was missing that they could bring instead of, another mashed potatoes. And so it's just a very basic inventory system that said, these are the items we want at this lunch. This is what's been taken already. This is what's available. We need 3 servings of this, 2 servings of this, and then create that. So that's a very, very simple app that's probably still out there somewhere. I don't think we've used it in a long time. And then for true business enterprise use cases, we manage data centers with it. So we keep track of all of our servers, our hard drives, runtimes on them, serial numbers, all that kind of data stays all in the Creator application. We do a lot of build updates out of there. We do content review in Creator apps. So all across the board, from sales operations, marketing operations, admin operations, infrastructure operations, everything. I would say there's probably not a department in Zoho that doesn't have a Creator app running something for them.
So when all the data centers are managed on the Creator platform, on an app built on the Creator platform, it means that if that stops for let's say an hour, we are in a lot of trouble.
If the data center or the app?
The app.
Oh yeah, if the data center stops, then we have a bigger problem. But yeah, if the app starts, then also a big problem because they monitor, temperatures and usage and write speeds and all sorts of data they're getting from the thing. So if it stops working, it's a pretty big problem where kind of reliability of the platform becomes extremely important. So yeah, I'd say maybe that's proven reliability that it works and that many people are using it. But
True. Okay, so that's how we are using it internally, right? Obviously, you talk to a lot of customers. Can you share a couple of really innovative, really nice use cases that you have come across? Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I would say there's a couple different use cases that are generally pretty good. I put them in two buckets. One that are, I would say, more impressive, like, wow, I can't believe you built that. That's pretty, a genius way of using the platform. And the other one is maybe a little bit more the kind of emotional, heartfelt story where, oh, you're really doing good with this platform. It really empowered and enabled people to make a change. So on the latter, for making a change, I want to say during COVID, there was a big boom of applications that were built around vaccine distribution. So really showing stock levels at different places, booking appointments, scheduling out workers to be at these stations, and cities around the U.S. for sure, and I think around the world as well. There's a lot of just vaccine distribution applications being built very quickly by governments, local agencies, church groups, NGOs, whatever. The more I would say enterprise use cases, that's a lot larger scale. A big one I would say that's pretty impressive is there's like a large auto manufacturer, let's call it, and they do a lot of quality assurance testing throughout the manufacturing process. So imagine like a car goes through like a conveyor belt and an assembly line, and at every stage it needs to be checked to make sure that there's no defects anywhere. And so what these guys used to have was they had like laptops and computer stations at every single one, and a person would check an item and then manually have to update the status and say, oh, this is approved or not approved, or they'd tap a button or something like that. But whenever it's not approved, you would need to provide context for why it's not approved. And so they were just looking for a better way to do it. So they came to us, they found us, and basically created like these mobile apps where you could take a picture of whatever item was broken. You could just circle it and annotate it directly on the phone, send it off to the QA team. The QA team would review it, and it would go into like a different queue in the warehouse, and then for like repairs rather than like approved items. And this thing was tracked and managed, I want to say by, I'd say well over maybe 2,000 plus probably factory workers use this mobile app that then connects back into a help desk system where the QA people manage and track all the issues and try to bucket if there's any kind of trends, and maybe a certain lot of cars had a issue with a certain attribute of the car, and they can identify going back to maybe the supplier, the source. All that's kind of tracked in there. So that's way more like kind of complex use case, both ends of the spectrum.
Got it. And you did mention about the mobile app part, right? And I think you also touched upon this for a different question. But then it's necessary to have a mobile app for most use cases at this point in time. How does it happen on the creator platform in itself? Do you have to build it separately? How does that work out? Because I'm assuming that would be a core demand for most of the customers that you cater to.
Yeah, mobile is still totally very important. I would say what Creator does and what most low-code vendors do in general is whenever you build something, primarily you're starting to build for the web, and then we'll make a mobile version automatically for you. So it'll automatically have all the different navigation and the forms and the fields and the reports, all that stuff will just automatically get created for you. I'd say this is like a very good, maybe like first step, but not really what you want to do in long term, because rather than just having a web experience translated to mobile, you really want a mobile first experience. And so in Creator specifically, you could make an app that's mobile first rather than web first. And so you're designing directly for the mobile. You create the screens, you create the navigation, you create how the workflows are, every swipe action, things like that, different access points to phone components like cameras and stuff like that, GPS, things like that. And so you can definitely make customized mobile apps specifically, but I would highly recommend that you might have a complicated application on, let's say, some field service management. You have a bunch of reps in the field going to appointments and stuff like that. Maybe a lot of scheduling, a lot of power features that are being used by some admins in an office. But the technician that's in the field, he doesn't need to see all that complexity. He just wants to see, a simple interface with probably some like large buttons that says, I've arrived at an address, what's my next stop, automatic routing, take pictures of whatever they are, maybe digital signature on their phone, a very scaled down version that plugs into the larger app. And so that combination of multiple application, I would say, interfaces based on use cases is important. So you might have a field rep, you might have a field manager, you might have an office manager. All three of them need mobile access to the app, but all three of their the data that they want to see is very different, and the experiences they want to have on the mobile app are very different. And being able to have multiple different experiences for multiple personas makes the app actually functional, and it's not just a replica of whatever's built on the web.
Got it. So contextual for the use. Great. One final question from my side, which where do you see this leading towards, right? 10 years down the lane, where do you think developer platforms would be? What would they enable organizations with? How do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think it's only going to be a growing market. I mean, ultimately, for the past maybe before like the low code hype, maybe 5-7 years ago, I would say a lot of people just turned to Excel to solve their problems. And going forward in the next 10 years, as more and more, especially younger folks, are more technical, these app development platforms are going to be way more prevalent in the organization. Basically, whatever you can do to make your life easier and not do mundane tasks is going to be a very bottom-up strategy for a good implementation within an organization. Because even today, with all the technology we have, there's still email processes. There's still paper processes in organizations that either people are too lazy to fix because it takes too much time, maybe there's too many dependencies. But as those become lesser, as the software becomes easier to use and more intuitive, we're going to just see a lot more digitization of it. And that's ultimately going to lead to more data insights through analytics, more opportunity for people to innovate and improve processes that are not stuck in the old ways. And so, yeah, I'd say in general, maybe 10 years down the line, I would say there's probably not a decent company out there that doesn't have some kind of low code application or platform in their business software suite. Just like you have email, just like you have docs, just like you have a CRM, you're going to have something to build custom solutions for. So you can build things quickly, solve your problems, organize it, and not be bottlenecked by technology at all.
Awesome. Exciting times ahead. Thank you very much for your time, Tejas.
Yeah, thanks.
Pleasure having you here.